Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Beis Amud Beis, the second line from the top. Our Mishnah stated in regards to a kara, a crossbeam, to be mesakein on mavui. One cannot have the crossbeam higher than esrim amos. That's the opinion of the Tanakama, the Chachamim. Rabbi Yehuda is choylek and he says it can be higher than esrim amo. Rav explained that the Chachamim learned their shita from the Heichal, because the Heichal's entranceway was 20 amos high and 10 amos wide, whereas Rabbi Yehuda learns it from the Ulam, because the Ulam was 40 amos high and 20 amos wide. Says the Gemara to ask on both shitas, because when it comes to the Mishnah, it's stated that one cannot have the width of the mavui, the entrance, being wider than Eser Amos. So the Gemara now asks, Bein l'Rabbanan, bein l'Rabbi Yehuda, lilfu mi Pesach shar hachotzer. Both according to the Rabbanan, the Gemara assumes also according to Rabbi Yehuda, you cannot have beyond Eser Amos as a width for the doorway. And therefore the Gemara asks, why don't you learn from the Pesach of the Shar HaChotzer, the entranceway of the gate of the Chotzer? The Chsiv, it states in the Pasuk, Orech HaChotzer Mea Ba'amo, V'rochav Chamishim B'Chamishim, V'koima Chamesh Amos. It states that the length, if a person walks into the Mishkan, it states over there that you're going through the eastern part. Now it doesn't state the measurement, but it says over here, you'll go through the eastern part as you walk in to the Mishkan. The length of the Chotzer is 100 amos long and 50 by 50 wide. The height is 5, that's the dimensions. The Ksiv, it says, V'chamesh esrei amma kilayim lekosef. It states that there are 15 amos of curtain on the shoulder. V'ksiv v'lokesef hashenis mizel mizel l'shar hachotzer kilayim chamesh esrei amo. And it states on the shoulder of the second side, there is also on the shar hachotzer, the curtain being 15 amos. So there's 15 amos on both sides. If you have a width of 50 amos and you have 15 amos of curtain on both sides, so 50 minus 30 gives you an entranceway of 20. So the Gemara is essentially asking, why didn't both Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda learn from here an entranceway can have the width of 20 amos and not say that's limited to Eser amos? Ma lahalon chamesh beroichav esrim, afkan chamesh beroichav esrim. Just like over there in the Mishkan, the height was only 5 amos, and yet the width was 20. So too over here, we can say that the width can also be 20. Now, parenthetically, we're not asking that how can the height be higher than 5 amos if over there by the Mishkan we're seeing that it's no higher than 5 amos, because we found a precedent by the Heichal that the Heichal is 10 amos. So that's not going to be a question. But the question still stands, why don't we make a bigger width in regards to the entranceway? Answers the Gemara, Pesach Shar HaChotzer Ikri, Pesach Stamalo Ikri, because there it's called the entranceway of the Shar, of the gateway of the Chotzer. But then it's talking about, it doesn't speak it as the Pesach, and since it doesn't say as the entranceway Stam, therefore we cannot use that as the classical paradigm for the width of the entranceway. The boys aim alternatively, you can say the following: Ki ksiv kilayim chamesh esrei amma lekosef. When it states that there is the curtains that extend 15 amos to the shoulder, begoiva hu dirsiv, it's referring to the goiva, the height, and therefore entire height of 15 amos altogether. That means that you have the goiva, 15 amos is the height of the curtains. That's what we're talking about, not the width, but rather the height. Ask the Gemara, how can we be referring to the height? Goiva v'haksiv v'koima chamesh amos. It stated before that the koima, the height is 5 amos. So how can you tell me that it's not the width that we're talking about, but it's the height of 15 amos? Answers the Gemara, Hu misfas mizbeach ulamala. Because there it's talking about the edge of the mizbeach and higher, meaning the mizbeach is 10 amos, according to this. Follows the Tana that says the mizbeach is 10 amos, plus the 5 additional amos that it's referring to as koima chamesh amos, gives you then the extension of the curtain being entire 15 amos. So it's 5 amos again above the mizbeach, a total of 15 amos. The Gemara now says, "Vayter Rabbi Yehuda mipischoi shel ulam gomar." The Gemara now challenges that indeed does Rabbi Yehuda learn from the Pesach of the ulam? We said the ulam's dimensions, the entranceway was the height of 40 amos and a width of 20 amos. So ask the Gemara, does Rabbi Yehuda really learn the dimensions from the ulam? V'hotnan, it states in our Mishnah, v'harocha me'eser amos yimait. If indeed there is a width more than 10 amos wide to the entranceway of the mavui, then you must minimize it to make it less than 10 amos, or 10 amos or less. So if that's the case, how could Rabbi Yehuda, who seemingly agrees with this, learn from the ulam, which says that it's 20 amos wide? V'lo polig Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't state that he's arguing in our Mishnah. He only argues on the height, but he doesn't seem to argue on the width. So therefore, how can he learn from the ulam? Answers the Gemara, Amar Abaye polig bebraisa. He does argue, and it's befeirush stated in the Braisa. The Tanya v'hirchiv me'asar amos yimait. The Tanakama says if it's wider than 10 amos, then you must memait. Rabbi Yehuda oimer eino tzarich lemait. He says you don't have to minimize. So you see that Rabbi Yehuda says that beyond the eser amos, the width can be beyond eser amos. Ask the Gemara v'liflig ma'masnisin. Why doesn't he then argue in the Mishnah? There it doesn't state an argument in regards to the width in our Mishnah. Answers the Gemara, Poli begoiva v'godin l'rachva. Once we see that he's arguing on the height, and we then said that the source for that is the ulam, because he learns from the ulam that it could be higher than 10 amos. So then we see also he's arguing also on the width as well, even though the Mishnah doesn't state it. Says the Gemara, Vayter v'akati Rabbi Yehuda mipischoi shel ulam gomar. The Gemara continues to ask, is it so that Rabbi Yehuda learns the dimensions from the ulam? Again, a height of 40 amos and a width of 20 amos. The Gemara challenges this. Vahatani, states in the Braisa as follows. Mavui shehu gavoya mechaf amo yemai. The Tanakama says if you have a mavui that's higher than 20 amos, you must minimize it. V'Rabbi Yehuda machshir ad mem v'nun amo. Rabbi Yehuda, he machshir such a height, either he says up to 40 or up to 50 amos. V'tani bar kaporo ad meya. And bar kaporo taught in the name of Rabbi Yehuda to explain his position even up to 100 amos. So the Gemara says, Bishlamo le bar kaporo guzma. He says, granted, according to bar kaporo, so he's explaining Rabbi Yehuda as a guzma, as an exaggeration, that certainly anything above 20 amos would be mutter. When he says up to 100 amos. So he's exaggerating. But El Rabbi Yehuda, my guzma. But the way it was stated, then how could it state that Rabbi Yehuda, who says 40 or 50 amos, being an exaggeration? He seems to be saying an accurate 40 or 50 specific amos, but not more than that. Bishlam Rabbi Yehuda arboim gomar, granted. He's saying that it's 40 amos, then he has a present of the ulam. Mipischei shel ulam. El chamishim minole. But if you're going to say that it can be 50 amos, and he's saying that specifically, accurately, where do we have a precedent for 50 amos? We only have a precedent for the 40 amos, being the ulam. Answers the Gemara, Amar b'chizda hamasnisa atiisei l'Rav. Rav Chizda says this brisa misled Rav. When Rav said that he learned it from the ulam, he was misled by this brisa as follows. The Tanya states in the brisa, Mavui shehu gavoya mechaf amma yoyse mepischa shel heichal yimait. The Tanakama states over here in the brisa, again, a mavui that has higher than 20 amos must be then coming down, must be minimized. Hasa, Husavar midrabanan b'pischa shel heichal gamri, whereby Rav explained that position of the Chachamim comes from the heichal, which doesn't have an entranceway higher than 20 amos. Rabbi Yehuda mipischa shel ulam gamar, whereas Rabbi Yehuda, he learns from the Pesach of the ulam, which is higher than 20 amos. Velohi, and it's not so, explains Rav Chisda. Rabbi Yehuda mipische de malkin gomar. Rabbi Yehuda learned from the Pesach of the Melech. The Pesach, the entranceway to a king's palace, is often higher than 20 amos. That's where he learns, and therefore he can even say that it's up to 50 amos. Ask the Gemara now, Rabbanan ipischa shel heichal gemiri. The Gemara now goes back to the Rabbanan's position. Is it so that the Rabbanan learn from the entranceway to the heichal that it can only be up to 20 amos? If indeed they do learn from the heichal, then they would also require doors themselves. Just like there were doors in the heichal, there should be doors also that are going to then open up to the entranceway from the Mavui to the Rishus Harabim. Alomatnan, why does it state the Hechsher Mavui Beishamei Lechi Vikare Ubeis Hilo Lechi Oikare? Why does it state in regard to be Machshir, that fourth wall that opens up from the Mavui to the Rishus Harabim, that according to Beis Hillel, either a lechi, a side post, or a kara, or a crossbeam is sufficient? According to Beis Shammai, it requires both, but does not state anything about requiring delossos, doors. Delossos heichel, answers the Gemara, delossos heichel letznius ba'almahu da avidon. Because when it comes to the doorway, the doors of the heichal, they were merely made for tznius, and therefore, in terms of the ikr purpose of doors to be as security, that is not necessary. And therefore, in regards to the doorway that we learn from heichal, the opening that we learn from the heichal to the mavui, it's sufficient to have either a lechi or a kara according to Beis Hillel, or a lechi and a kara according to Beis Shammai. Ask the Gemara further, Elameyato, if indeed this is so that we're learning from the heichal, lo tehave leitzuras haPesach. Then lo tahani leitzuras haPesach, you should not then allow a tzuras haPesach, because the whole heichal tzuras haPesach havyalo. The heichal had a tzuras haPesach, and still our Mishnah states that if you have something that's wider than eser amos, then you can mesakin it with a tzuras haPesach. Yet when it comes to the heichal only had a width of 10 amos, and it had a tzuras haPesach. So we see that the tzuras haPesach is not sufficient to go beyond the eser amos as a width. So Gemara says, Afilu hochi eser amos hu deraviach. Still, the eser amos was its width. So how can you tell me that a tzuras haPesach can widen it beyond eser amos, when we find the heichal again only had up to eser amos, and it had a tzuras haPesach? What does it state? Why does our Mishnah state that if you do have a tzuras haPesach, it can widen the entranceway even beyond eser amos? If you're going to learn from the heichal, then you don't have a precedent, then the tzuras haPesach can be machshir beyond the eser amos. Answers the Gemara, midi hu taima elu Rav. This is only a question according to Rav. Ha masni le Rav Yehuda lechia barav kamei de Rav, and it was taught by Rabbi Yehuda to Chia, the son of Rav, in front of Rav's presence. Einot sarich lemait, that you do not have to mimait if it's wider than eser amos, if you have a tzuras haPesach. And Rav said, Asne tzorich lemait, teach him that you do have to mimait. In other words, although our Mishnah states that if you have a tzuras haPesach, you can have even a wider entranceway than eser amos, because the tzuras haPesach is machshir. So Rav argues on that, and Rav is explaining differently. No, that if you have a tzuras haPesach, it doesn't machshir beyond eser amos. The width has to be a maximum of eser amos, just like we learned from the heichal, and therefore it's not going to be a kasha, because although the heichal had a tzuras haPesach and it was only eser amos, so too, according to Rav, our mavui can also be only Eser Amos, and a Tzuras HaPesach will not machshir beyond the width of Eser Amos.